Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Yamos Hey Bucks. I'm Drew Sample. I'm joined, as always, by the man, the myth, the legend, the beat writer for Columbus Wired. My favorite guy to talk Buckeyes with, Mr. Andrew T. Evans, who's also known as Andy Evans. What's going on,
That is
Andy?
correct.
Oh, you
Doing
sound
well,
great.
sir.
It's like,
Just celebrating another big Buckeye win. Ready to talk some shop. Chop it up, man. Chop up some Buckeyes, Scarlet Knights, baby.
yeah, what a great game yesterday. Lots to get into here. So, number one, Ohio State moves to 9-0 after a 35-16 win over Rutgers, who is now 6-3. This win makes them 10-0 all time against the Scarlet Knights. First time ever in school history that they've won the first 10 games ever played against another team. The 19-point win covered the 18.5-point spread, but this is the lowest margin of victory ever over the Scarlet Knights. This is also probably the best Scarlet Knights team they've ever played, out of all fairness. So, Buckeyes had 328 yards and Rutgers had 361 yards. So they beat us on the yards. At the same time, though, I have a lot to say about that. This is OSU's season low of total yards. First time all year they were outgained by the other team. 361 yards allowed by the defense was a season high. Running back Travion Henderson led the team with 208 total yards. Kyle McCord threw for 73% completion rate, which is really good. Second highest completion percentage on the season and tied season high three touchdown passes. Marvin Harrison Jr. only has 4 catches for 25 yards, but led the team with 2 touchdowns. Emeka Egbuka, first game back since getting hurt versus Purdue, 4 catches for 25 yards. Linebacker Tommy Eichenberg led the team with 12 tackles. And we're also going to talk some Michigan today. So let's get into it. Let's talk to first things first. Travion Henderson, he had over 63% of their total offense with 208 yards. Led the team both on the ground and through the air with 22 carries for 128 yards and 1 touchdown. They were really trying to get him an extra touchdown there at the end of the game. And 5 catches for 80 yards. Second straight 100-yard rushing game, 200 total yard game, proving he's indeed the starting running back, and also just kind of really making a statement that, hey, I'm ready to go play in the NFL.
Yeah, what can you say about Travion's performance yesterday? I mean, he is finally looking like the running back we expected at the beginning of the year. We expected this last year, but unfortunately, he got hurt in the Toledo game, broken foot, and was just not the same for the rest of the season. But these last 2 games, even maybe more so than his freshman year, and he was great. He was dynamic his freshman year, but this is the best. I mean, this is definitely the best I've seen Travion look since at least his freshman season. The way he's cutting, the way he's seeing the field exploding through the holes, waiting for blocks to set up, and then boom, a jump cut. It's been remarkable to see how vastly he has improved. Really, I mean, since obviously the Notre Dame game. I mean, Notre Dame game, he had a good game. I still kind of felt like we were seeing maybe a little bit of an apprehensive Travion, but after, getting hurt, taking the cheap shot in the Notre Dame game, his words, right? And then he sits out 3 games. He sits out for over a month, and then he comes back and he looks the way he does last week, a 207-yard performance. Then he puts up 208 yesterday against Rutgers, against a top 10 defense, by the way. That was a thing of beauty. I mean, he really looked the best I've seen him in a long, long time. And yeah, probably trying to impress some NFL scouts as well. Let's face it, I'm sure Travion wants this to be his last year in a scarlet and gray uniform because he's ready to move on to the big time. And these last 2 games have proven to me that, yes, he is without a doubt your running back 1. He's your main guy. And number 2, he's starting to look more and more like he's ready for the NFL, for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely running with a lot more. I mean, I've been saying it all year. He's got that chip on his shoulder. I think he's running like he has something to prove. I think he knows he's got a lot of ground to make up, and he wants to have an impact on the offense. And he was so effective um, that there would be times when you see Marvin Harrison wide open, and he was just throwing it. Kyle McCord throwing it straight to Travion and letting him make a play. Um, and so it was definitely a nice change of things. The other thing that I really liked about it with the use of Travion was it just felt like it got a little shaky there at the end of the first half against Rutgers, but then in the second half, it just seemed like we're beating Rutgers at their own game with heavy defense and a lot of running the ball. Like we were running the ball right at them, being effective, wearing out that D who was playing us really tough at the start. So I was very excited to see Travion Henderson play the way he did. Kyle McCord went 19 of 26, 73% completion rate with 3 touchdown passes. However, threw a season low of only 189 yards and tossed his 4th interception of the year and took a sack. That interception, honestly, he probably could have prevented it, but he was trying to throw it directly. It seemed like he didn't see that linebacker zone. He tried to throw it straight to Marvin Harrison. The linebacker jumped in there, grabbed the ball. Again, though, and then it did set up for, I believe, one of the field goals Rutgers had. And so that we definitely can't do that. Do you think this game's a game that's going to give more ammo to the Kyle McCord doubters?
Yeah, unfortunately it will, because people will look at the bottom line that he threw a season low 189 yards. He threw an interception. He took a sack. I saw some people on X and commenting, still not the quarterback for the job. He's still not Ohio State's guy. Things like that. And it's once again, we've talked about this before, folks. He is the guy. Okay, unless he gets hurt, he is the guy. And I don't want to hear anybody at the end of the season, unless Kyle McCord completely implodes and falls apart from here on out, which I personally do not see him doing. But unless that happens, Ryan Day ain't going to no transfer portal either. So get that out of your head right now, Ohio State fans, right now. Okay, Kyle McCord is the quarterback now till the end of the season and into next year. Okay, period, point blank, plain and simple. But yeah, there are always going to be, Drew, we've talked about this now on a number of different occasions, about the spoiled fan, and they want their cake and they want to eat it too. And right now they see this offense as being very lackluster, very non-productive. The expectations were so high, for Ohio State's offense coming in, and for good reason, because of what we've seen the past several years under Ryan Day. They've had explosive, high-flying offenses, but this is just, unfortunately, at least up to this point, we have yet to really see a full game, I think, put together, except for maybe Western Kentucky when they scored 63 points. But even still, and 49 of that was the offense. Let's not forget there were 2 defensive touchdowns against the Hilltoppers. But at any rate, this is unfortunately a game that's going to give the doubters doubt. But to me, there is absolutely no doubt Kyle McCord is your guy from here on out. End of story.
Yeah, I noticed some of the doubters actually coming around, and they're like, I started comparing him to Craig Krenzel and saying, he's just like Craig Krenzel. And then I remembered he won us a national championship. So I immediately shut up and was like, what am I complaining about?
Exactly. I mean, okay, 73% of his passes were complete yesterday. And check this out, Drew. Here's an interesting stat. Take this for what it's worth. Take it for what you will. Kyle McCord actually yesterday set an Ohio State record. Do you know that? Did you hear that? Yes, because he is the first ever Ohio State quarterback to throw 18 straight complete passes. No other quarterback in Ohio State history has ever completed 18 straight passes. However, here's the take it for what it's worth, for what you will, with a grain of salt, whatever. It's in 2 different games that it happened. So he completed the last 7 passes last week against Wisconsin. Then he completed his first 11 passes yesterday against Rutgers, hence 18 straight complete passes. So it did take 2 games for that to happen. So it's kind of a stat where you're like, yeah, that doesn't sound as impressive to me as if he were to have done it in a single game, which, let's face it, in a single game, much harder to do than the end of one and the beginning of the other. But nonetheless, it's still, I mean, is it an Ohio State record that's going to go down in the actual record books? Is that something that Ohio State keeps track of, is like a number of actual complete passes? No, you will not find that in the record book. But it probably would have been something that, had that game been at home, they probably would have made an announcement over the PA system in the press box saying, Kyle McCord has now completed his 18th straight pass, and he's the first ever quarterback to do it at Ohio State. They still kind of keep track of those kind of stats, but you won't see it in a record book. But nonetheless, 73% has a school record now. That's not officially a record. And yeah, I mean, the yardage was low, and he did throw a pick and he took a sack, but 3 touchdown passes. And let me tell you what, those 2 touchdown passes he threw to Marvin were on point. I mean, he put them in a spot, especially that last touchdown pass he threw to Marvin. Marvin was kind of, to the inside, and he specifically threw it outside to where he knew Harrison was going to come back and make the catch. He specifically threw it to a spot he knew his guy was going to go to. Marvin, boom, came back, made the catch. That was one of the best passes I have seen Kyle McCord throw all season long, and he's thrown some good passes this year. But to me, once again, he's the man. He's the man. Period. I mean, not the man like the GOAT, the man, but he's the man for the job, and I think he has played well enough to get Ohio State to this point. And of course, it doesn't hurt that you've got a really good defense to fall back on.
Absolutely. And you got Money Man Marv. So Money Man stats enough. Was it enough to knock him out for the Heisman consideration? 900 receiving yards on the season, leads the Big Ten by more than 200 yards and ranks 9th in the nation. 10 touchdowns, tied with Michigan's wide receiver Roman Wilson for the Big Ten, and is tied with 5 others and 4th in the country. So was it enough to knock him out? One thing, as we saw at Rutgers, they had really good cornerbacks. They were all over Marvin Harrison. They broke up a lot of pass plays, but we still found a way to get to him. And I felt like they've forced Kyle McCord to throw the ball around. Like, we saw some key catches by Emeka Egbuka. G. Scott was pretty big. He came up pretty big. He missed some easy ones, but
had a huge
rusty.
drop over the middle at one point. Yeah, G. Scott did a huge drop, but still had a touchdown catch. First touchdown.
Yep, Carnell Tate was involved. We got to see Emeka Egbuka play. So honestly, the offense was opening up quite a bit, and for a group of guys that haven't been healthy to all finally share the field again together, I'm sure that had some things to do with it. And just playing against a really good secondary. Probably the best secondary we've played. So what do you think this was enough to knock him off for the Heisman race? He still had 2 touchdowns. So in my opinion, no, not at all. I think just the fact that in a game where he only got 4 catches and for 25 yards, 2 of them were still touchdowns. That's still a pretty decent fantasy day if he was in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, if you're in a PPR league, I mean, he got you 4 points on the catches. He got you, 26 yards, which they typically give you like 1 point for every 25 receiving yards, I think. Or is it 10? Is it 10 yards? Maybe, I think that's passing. Yeah, it depends on the league, I guess. But okay, let's say you're playing fantasy football. You got 2 touchdowns, you got 12 points, plus another 4 points for the catches. So there's, 16. Plus, let's just say it's a point for every 10 yards receiving, which I know the leagues I play in are typically a point for every 10 yards. So he just gave you 18 points yesterday in a fantasy league on 4 catches for 26 yards and 2 touchdowns, 18 points. I think any fantasy owner would take an 18-point day any day. You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously you want, 25, 30 points out of every guy on your roster, but still 18-point day if you were in a fantasy league. No, it was not enough to knock him out of the Heisman race. Like you just said, I mean, he's leading the Big Ten right now with like 917 yards or something like that. And the next closest guy has like 693 or something like that. So he's 200 yards more than the guy who is in second place in receiving yards in the Big Ten. And like you just said, I mean, that's good for like 9th in the country. He's tied for second with, like you said, 5 other guys in the nation in touchdown receptions. No. And it's just, put the stats aside and just look at his abilities. And let's not forget this either, folks. Dude is playing with a bum ankle, right? I mean, he has been playing since the Notre Dame game with a bum ankle. And he has said a few different times, we've heard him say it, Drew, that, yeah, I don't think he's been asked here the last couple of weeks, like, how's the ankle? Because it seems fine, because the way he's playing, I think we just think that he's okay and he's good to go and he feels like 100% healthy, or at least he's, not feeling any pain, which is probably not the truth. Maybe we should ask him that this upcoming Wednesday at the Woody. But it just, the way he's playing on this ankle has been extraordinary. To me personally, no. Is that enough to knock him from his Heisman hopes? I think right now he's an outside dark horse candidate anyways. I'm not so sure if he's going to get an invitation to New York, as crappy as that is to say, depending on how the rest of the season shakes out. I can tell you this, that if he continues, 5 catches for, 30, 40 yards and a touchdown or something like that every game from here on out, that's going to heavily decrease his chances. So he's still got to have at least, I mean, there's at least what? Three regular season games left, as well as an assured postseason game of one way, shape, or form. So they're at least guaranteed 4 games. But of course, that postseason game, they're going to hand out the Heisman before any sort of postseason work, whether it be a bowl game or a college football playoff semifinal or obviously the national championship. So
Which is
at least 3 games, he's got to have at least 2 of them be over 100 yards receiving, with probably about, honestly, at least a touchdown per game, if not maybe bordering on around 4 or 5 total touchdowns in the next 3 games, with at least 2 of them over 100 yards each. And it would be huge if he were able to have a 100-yard and like 2 touchdown game at least against who up north. So to me, nah, he's still in it. A dark horse, but his name is still there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he should be able to pad his stats next couple games too. I mean, we have a really bad Michigan State team, really bad Minnesota team, and then probably the biggest game of the season. So we started out yesterday, no fake punt on the first drive, but we did have another fake punt. They said it wasn't a design fake punt. He looked pretty angry on the sidelines. This is the 3rd botched fake punt going back to last year's Michigan game. Is it time for Ryan Day to part ways with special teams coach Parker Fleming? Fleming is only 1-4 full-time special teams coach in the FBS. Is he related to Julian?
No relation. Yeah, is it time for him to go? I mean, like you just said, he is one of only 4 full-time special teams coaches in the entire FBS. This is his 3rd year now. 2nd botched fake punt of the year. Ryan Day he looked upset at Jesse Mirko, almost as if Mirko called his own number. So is that Parker Fleming's fault? I don't know. I mean, if we're going to take Ryan Day's word for it, that it was not a designed fake punt, and that Mirko simply just, played vigilante on that one and decided he was going to run it on like, what it was at like 4th and 5. And they were like on their own 30-some yard line. And I mean, he had of course, being lining up further back from the line of scrimmage, I mean, he had probably about 12 yards to try and make that first down running it like he did.
He's definitely not fast. He didn't have blocks. There was a lot of weird stuff going on there. The first thing I thought when I saw Ryan Day yelling at him on the sidelines, and just looked like it didn't seem like he knew it was going to happen. But I mean,
yeah, he did.
I don't
he did.
You thought it looked like it was going to happen, or
no? It looked like he did. Yeah, yes, he looked surprised.
He was calling a pretty conservative game, and especially with Rutgers, because the biggest takeaway I had with this game, and we're going to get into with our defense, but it seemed like, especially in the second half, we beat Rutgers at their own game. We let Rutgers run out the clock, and then we would bend but not break, even though Jim Knowles hates it when people say that, but that's exactly what we did. And we would convert. We would drive down the field by running the ball, taking time off the clock. We pretty much used Travion to get down there. We try to get him in the end zone, but it wouldn't happen, and then we'd throw it off to Marv or G. Scott or whoever else. How many touchdowns did G. Scott have?
1. He had the first one.
Okay, Marvin had 2. We got the
Travion had a touchdown, and then they had the 93-yard pick six.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. So, no, I honestly was like, is this Australian kid gambling in his home country or something that he's gonna fake these punts? Like, I don't understand it. Like, it wasn't a good play design. It looked like he could have punted it. It was kind of like, what the heck is going on with this? Like, it looked like everybody looked confused. So I'm not 100% sure on that. That was pretty weird. So I say no. I say we really need to get to the bottom of it, though. Like, I think our fake plays aren't very good, especially when we saw Rutgers execute that beautifully designed, basic, old school fake play, which really I was so thrilled we didn't give up a touchdown from. So let's get into the defense here. So 129 yards allowed through the air, second lowest on the year. Still haven't allowed.
But by the way, hold on, Drew. Let's go back, because I never gave you my opinion on Parker Fleming.
You're right.
All right.
You're right. I'm sorry.
You say no. You say no. I say yes. I know that fake punt was. It didn't look like it was designed. It looked like Jesse Murko called an audible, called his own number on that one. Played, like I said, vigilante. But even then, the special teams are typically handled by the other coaching staff. And I think that it's the reason why Ryan Day has not let Parker Fleming go up to this point. Maybe there are other reasons behind the scenes that, we don't know. The two could be fishing buddies, drinking buddies, whatever. They're best pals. And, Ryan Day would look at it as a slap in the face if he fired Parker Fleming. But nonetheless, you look at Ohio State statistically, with kickoff returns, punt returns. Right now, actually, Jesse Murko, he's like one of the worst net punting averages in the Big Ten. Is that Parker Fleming's fault? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you would think that a special teams guy would maybe be able to show a kicker, hey, instead of trying to kick it this way, try and kick it that way. If you want to get more yardage, you do that, you do it like this, you do it like that. At least that's how I look at a special teams. If you're going to hire somebody specifically for special teams, then they should know the specifics going into those specifics, how to kick, how to punt. And I'm sure Parker Fleming is a great guy. I mean, he's come out for some interview sessions every now and again, and he's always come off as a real genuine, nice guy. But as far as being a specific special teams coordinator and coach is concerned, they need to find a different role for him in the very least. Keep him on the coaching staff, but as far as a paid full-time special teams coach, no, I think I think you need to let Parker Fleming do something else or just let him go entirely, because special teams have been a point of content for the Buckeyes this year.
Yeah, I can see that. Our returns aren't anything impressive. It's like it seems like we make more mistakes than good things happen. Now that I think about it,
Yeah.
even though I just want to
Yeah.
blame the Australian guy.
I swayed your opinion. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
All right,
But
back
now
to
we
the
can talk about
defense.
the defense.
Still haven't allowed an opponent over 200 yards passing in a game, and that was with both our starting safeties hurt. Cornerback Jordan Hancock has 93-yard interception return for a touchdown, fifth longest interception return for touchdown in Ohio State history. Ohio State's third pick six on the year, ranked second in the Big Ten to Michigan's 4. However, yeah, I think Michigan's killing us in the takeaway category, though. We need to look that up. I'm pretty sure they get a lot more takeaways than we do. However, allowed this in a season high 232 yards rushing to the Scarlet Knights. Rutgers Kyle Monangai, 24 carries, 159 yards, second most on the year. First game since last year against the Smelly Rodents, the Buckeyes have given up over 200 yards on the ground to one team, and the most to a single rusher when Donovan Edwards ran for 216. Is this a potential chink in the armor for the Buckeyes? Andy, what do you think?
First of all, I just looked it up. Michigan has they're 30th in the country right now with 14 turnovers forced. Ohio State is 106th with 8 turnovers forced, 6 of them being interceptions. No. Look, the defense, like you said, they have yet to allow a team to throw for over 200 yards in a game. Hasn't happened yet. However, the one thing that they also did that wasn't listed on the sheet there, they allowed their first 40-yard play of the season, and it was on that trick play that Rutgers ran on fourth down for 45 yards. So, and there were only 2 teams in the entire conference that had yet to allow a 40-yard a play of 40 yards or more, and they both played yesterday, Ohio State and Rutgers. And the Buckeyes, finally happened. They gave up a 200-yard rusher on the, or at least a 200-yard rushing game for the first time all year. And like you said, which was the last time they gave up 200 yards on the ground. We saw how that game turned out against the Rodents last season. No, I think this defense is fine. If anything, hopefully it motivates them to kind of lock down. But it was a little disconcerting to see the way Monangai was just gashing them up the middle. I mean, just up the middle, up the middle, up the middle, up the middle. He was just gashing them for chunks. And of course, 45-yard trick play run kind of helps those rushing yards too. But nonetheless, it was a little disconcerting, but I overall, I was still happy with the way the defense played, especially like you said, since they were without 2 of their starting defensive backs. Safety Lathan Ransom and cornerback Denzel Burke were both out, which doesn't necessarily, safeties and corners obviously come up and play the run. But typically that's more on your defensive line and linebackers for the most part, right? But the facts,
Proctor was making some big plays.
Who?
Josh Proctor.
Oh yeah, Proctor. Yes, yeah. Oh yeah. He was playing large too. Well, he's the one who forced the deflection for the pick 6. And then he went out on that play and he was done. So at that point, for the entire second half, you're down to start the second half 9-7. You're trailing Rutgers 9-7. Your offenses looked bad. Your defense is giving up large chunks of rushing yards, which they still kind of continue to give up rushing yards throughout the second half. But their defense obviously played much better because they only allowed that one touchdown, which we might get into that here in a second. The Davison Igbinosun, the guy that I love and I don't want to say hate or dislike even, but it's just that kind of frustration with Davison Igbinosun at times because we've got a guy that commits a pass interference and the dude still makes a catch in the end zone and scores their one touchdown. It's on Davison Igbinosun. It's kind of the second time where he's given up and he had good coverage against Maryland. That pass that Tungavailoa threw to his guy in the back of the end zone was just an unbelievable pass and catch, and the dude one-hand catches it, but that was on Igbinosun. Yesterday's touchdown, it's on Igbinosun. He gets flagged for a pass interference. They still complete it for a touchdown. But that notwithstanding, the way that they played with a true freshman cornerback, Jermaine Matthews Jr., who came in basically and was playing Denzel Burke's position on the outside because they kept Hancock covering the slot. It just crazy. Yeah. The fact that, you're out your starting safety and cornerback, and then for the second half, you're out two of your starting safeties. So Malik Hartford came in and he played a pretty good game, another true freshman. So the fact that they played as well as they did in that second half, really locking down and only allowing Rutgers a touchdown, I think was saying something, and doing it with two true freshmen on the field.
Yeah, the other thing was, Igbinosun, he did give up that touchdown, but he was the one that saved the touchdown on the big trick play. He's the guy that made it down the field, was playing contain, got through the two wide receivers that should have blocked him, but they didn't. They were garbage blocking. Went through, still made the tackle. So overall, I think it was a net positive for him. It seemed weird. It seemed like the Buckeyes, all the guys from that are close to Rutgers, had a ton of family there, all seem to kind of have some weird moments of jitters or choking or something. And a lot of guys talked about Wednesday how excited they were. I personally, I'm happy that this happened against Rutgers, so now we can prepare better for Michigan. Like we don't. It's
hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, our crap doesn't stink. We're still trying to do our best. It's like, hey, we need to improve at this. Otherwise, Corum's going to run all over us right up the middle. So I would say no. I was happy overall with the performance. Rutgers, I feel like put together their best game of the season against us. They looked pretty good. They were executing well. They were making good decisions. They seemed really stoked about the fact that they were bowl eligible. And they just played really hard. It was a nice physical game, and it was nice to see us be the more physical team once again. Speaking of which, one guy that you saw being really physical, shedding blocks and making plays, Mr. Tommy Eichenberg. He had 2 solo tackles, 10 assisted tackles, 12 tackles total. One tackle. How many tackles for loss? Oh, did he have tackles?
He didn't have any.
He had 2.5. He didn't have any, but he still made plays. So this season, some are the same fans that are the McCord critics. They're also saying, that Tommy Eichenberg, I don't know about him. I don't know if he's playing as well this year. Is Tommy Eichenberg, is he playing as well as he could? And I would say, yes, he is. Last year, he finished number 1 All Big Ten, second team All-American with team leading 120 tackles, 12 tackles for a loss. Currently leads the team with 75 tackles, but only 2.5 tackles for a loss. Are these unfair criticisms for this year? I'm going to say yes. Andy, what do you say?
Yeah, I agree. I think it is unfair criticism. Look at the way that Tommy Eichenberg has been utilized. Last year, he was blitzing a lot more often. This year, he's not blitzing nearly as much. I see him out in pass coverage quite a bit. Now, there have been times where, especially the Penn State game, I saw he and JT Tuimoloau, they were stunting with each other. But Eichenberg was being used as like the decoy to kind of go around the left side of the defensive line while JT stunted right up the middle and was the one putting the pressure on Drew Aller. Yesterday, I didn't see Eichenberg, once again, really blitzing. He was playing a lot of pass coverage. I mean, he comes up, he plays the run, teams up with guys. Sometimes he gets sent in on a blitz, but I just haven't seen it as often as I did last year. And so from a statistical standpoint, I get it where some people are like, it just doesn't seem like he's playing as well as he was last year. And it's like, well, but look at the way he's being utilized. He's just not being utilized like he was last season. And I still think Tommy Eichenberg is doing everything he's asked. And like you just said, he's still leading the team in tackles. I mean, he might be a stretch for him to hit 120 like he did last year, but he's still the team leader in tackles. And if I'm not mistaken, he's got like quite a few more than the guy who's in second place.
I mean,
on
if
the
he
team,
gets
at
12
least.
tackles, if he gets another 12 tackles a game, he'll be there. And I don't see him not getting at least 7 tackles a game. I mean, he's
7 or
21
8
more
a
tackles.
game.
Yeah, so maybe not 120. Did that include the Georgia game for the 120 tackles?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, he's going to have 120 tackles, but I think so by the end of the season. I would.
That's
maybe not
45 more tackles.
He's got it. He's got it.
Okay,
He's
so that's an average of 10 and a half tackles a game.
I mean, he got like 10 tackles last game too.
I mean, it's doable. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's definitely doable, but I think he's got a little bit steeper of a hill to climb to get to 120 again. So, but that's just my opinion. But
we can agree they were unfair criticisms.
I do agree. Yeah, I think that he's definitely doing what he's been asked to do this year. He's doing it well. And, once again, I mean, look at Ohio State's defense. I mean, one of the best defenses in the country. So, we can sit there and, Jim Knowles, I'm sick of your crap. I don't know what you're doing with these guys, but he's doing it. He's done it well enough so far that, I guess when 16 points is the second most you've allowed all season, and that was just 1 point lower than the most you've allowed, you're doing something right. So, Tommy Eichenberg, just keep doing what you're doing, brother. You're playing some football this year for sure. I don't necessarily see the postseason accolades just because, the tackles for loss. I mean, what'd you say he had like 12 last year? And he's only got like 2.5 so far this year. I mean, so, and he had a pick 6 last season. Now with him being out in pass coverage, you would think that his chances would be higher to get an interception or 2 interceptions. But nonetheless, I think it's unfair, and I'm happy with his production.
Me too. Let's talk about the smelly rodents, as you like to call them. Connor Stalions resigns as an off-field analyst. Stalions reportedly refused to cooperate with any internal or external investigations or discussions. He was suspended with pay by Michigan. Oh, with pay? Nice vacation. On October 20th, after the NCAA launched an investigation into his alleged ticket purchases at several Big Ten stadiums ahead of those teams' games against the Wolverines over the past 3 seasons. What are your thoughts on this, Andy? For me, it gets goofy, and then people are like, it's some conspiracy against Harbaugh, and I think it's nonsense. And then it gets goofier, and then it's like getting really goofy. And now I'm also still kind of like, it just seems like this hype is coming out of like, okay, obviously, clearly they were cheating, and I think more information is going to come out. But at this point, I mean, it's entertaining. And it's being shoved down our throats right now, and I think it's entertaining every bit. I mean, the 2 large fan bases. I feel like we're trying to build up this game. I feel like they know this is automatically gonna get legs because we're gonna just call Michigan a bunch of cheaters because I mean, why not? It's fun. So I don't know. I think it's definitely a big deal. But everybody seems to try to steal signs. Now, the whole hacking anything outside of Connor Stallions, that's pretty interesting. But Andy, you get into it.
First of all, I was laughing there a second ago because our brilliant producer, Mr. Adam Dell, I love the wordplay and the alliteration he's got down there. Look at that. Sign stealing, smelly stallions suspended.
And
Say that 5 times fast. Yeah, this whole thing, dude, it's nuts. I mean, Connor Stallions apparently refused to go to a meeting that the Michigan administrators wanted to talk to him about. And he said, "No,
yeah,
I'm not attending your meeting. You know what? I'm just going to resign. I'm sick of this crap. I'm out. Like, I'll save you guys some face. I'll save myself some face. I'm done. I get the hell out of Dodge." But now, yeah, we're hearing, which is, I mean, it's still obviously that's not going to help. That's not going to make this thing go away. But I'm hearing stuff now that supposedly Ryan Day's brother, well, not supposedly, his brother owns like a private investigative firm based out of New Hampshire, which is where they were born and raised. And this private investigative firm are the ones that were investigating the whole Connor Stallions deal. And I've also even heard, and take this with a grain of salt, because this is just kind of nothing more than internet rumors, but supposedly this Weiss guy who the feds are investigating for like illegal, computer fraud and computer hacking, is actually the one who the investigation firm went to try and hack into Connor Stallion's computer. And then that's where all of this information was gleaned that he had been sign stealing. So I don't know. I mean, it could be deep. It could be like Area 51, JFK assassination, Zodiac killer, Jack the Ripper, just deep conspiracy, weird, crazy, whatever going on. Will we ever know the truth? I don't think Jim Harbaugh, at least, is ever going to tell us the truth. And we're going to have to get this from basically whatever the FBI comes out and finally, after their investigation is complete and they say this is how it all went down. The Big Ten is trying to talk to Connor Stallions. Michigan's trying to talk to Connor Stallions. He says no. He says, this whole thing is just nuts. It's just weird. It's just freaking weird. I'm almost getting to the point where I'm just like, all right, I'm now kind of starting to actually get tired of hearing the sign stealing stuff. I'll be honest with you. But it is still relevant because do we know whether or not Michigan is still like, do they know the other team's signs? We talked with Dylan Davis a couple weeks ago, and he said, hey, look, it is very difficult to change up your signs like the middle of the season. Like you've worked and practiced all pre-camp for a month on all of your signs, and then boom, those are your signs for the rest of the season. It's kind of hard to go, okay, remember how we did, this sign, that's no longer, and we're going to start doing, this sign. And that's what that means now. It's very hard to learn something on the fly like that.
I think you can make changes for Michigan. I think, like, I remember if we, even in high school, man, we would do, if we were punting, we would call a punt. Like if we were going to fake, we would say a different, you basically just say a different word, or you would say purple and the P was for punt. But then when we played another team that had an old coach, that would all change. And it wasn't really that hard to like, okay, this means this week. Okay, no big deal. So I think it's like essentially you're not changing the plays. You're just going to say, okay, this sign means this now versus this. And I think if you know that the other team knows, it's kind of fun to learn it quicker because you're like, oh yeah, they're never going to see this coming. So I don't know. I mean, I understand what Dylan was saying. I think more so, the hacking into the database. I mean, if you have footage from another team, like let's say you have 40 hours of footage, you could develop a significant advantage of that. So I think that's actually a way bigger deal than the sign stealing. Now, the whole Connor Stallions being on Central Michigan sideline, and Central Michigan's coach could have easily said, "Yeah, I don't know who that guy," or "Yeah, that's such and such. He just looks like Connor," but instead he just must look like Connor Stallions. Instead, he said, "Oh, I don't know who that guy is," and it was actually against the Michigan State awful team that we're going to be playing next week.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's fun. It's fun to talk crap. Um, all in all, though, like I don't want Michigan to get pulled now. I want to be able to beat Michigan. I don't want robbed of like we were robbed of 2020. If they know our old signs, so what? If they were in our database, so what? If we believe we have the best team with the best coaching staff, we should be preparing for that. And I feel like we have. I mean, there was one article that said that Ohio State told TCU that they were stealing signs, so TCU changed their signs, and that's why Michigan got such a slow start. So who knows? I think that it's fun. It's building hype to the game, and I think that's it. I mean, we want that rematch. It's still scary. Michigan has looked very dominant. They looked dominant again yesterday. Not that Purdue's good. I mean, they play in Happy Valley next week, right?
Yes, they do.
So, and Penn State looked to recover the way they embarrassed Maryland in Maryland.
Maryland.
Scored 50 points on
Yeah.
Maryland in Maryland. So Penn State looks like they're going to bring it for Michigan, hopefully. But I don't know. James Franklin can't beat ranked teams, so we'll see what happens. So let's talk about. We ready to talk about Michigan State and wrap this show up?
Let's do it.
All right, the Spartans are now 3-6 after a 20-17 upset on Saturday at home against the 5-3 Nebraska. Statistically, the worst team in the Big Ten offensively, ranking last in points per game, next to last in yards, ninth in total offense. I'll start us out. We should win by 21 points. I think. We shouldn't take the team lightly. They did just get an upset. I mean, they're playing for something. I mean, we all know they're going through some turmoil. They don't have their coach anymore. They have to. There's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, Michigan State was getting better and better up until this year when all this crap went down. So I don't know. I see Ohio State winning 42-3. I'll just leave it at that.
Ooh, oh man. Yeah, like you just said, statistically, offensively, they're not good. Defensively, they're just about as bad. In fact, I think defensively, they may not rank any higher than like ninth, in the major categories, in the conference, that is. Yeah, they're a team in turmoil, like you said. I mean, the whole thing with Mel Tucker, right at the beginning of the season. I mean, all of that just goes down, and you get your head coach ripped away from you out of nowhere. That's definitely going to add to some drama. It's going to put you in a little bit of a tailspin. I don't see any reason why, Ohio State shouldn't go up there and win by, like you said, 3 touchdowns. I mean, 42-3. I mean, they beat Purdue 41-7 on the road, and Purdue's just about as bad as Michigan State. I'm gonna, me. God, what are you talking about? Or what am I talking about? You're absolutely right. Next 2 games are at home. You got Michigan State and Minnesota at home. My fault, Buckeye fans. I'm going to be at the damn game. I for some reason was thinking it was going to be on the road. The fact that it's at home. 42-3. seems a little gaudy to me. You know me and my, pessimistic Peter, negative Nancy kind of ways. I like to reel it back a little bit, but I don't see why Ohio State probably. I mean, they put 35 on Rutgers, which 7 was a defensive touchdown. So theoretically or legitimately, 28 points on Rutgers. And Rutgers, yeah, once again, like a top 10 defense in the country. Why can't they put at least 5 or 6 true, legitimate offensive touchdowns on Michigan State? 42-3. Once again, I could definitely see that being the case. I'm gonna reel it in just a smidge and say 30. I'm gonna go with 37-6. 37-6. I'll give Michigan State a couple field goals.
All right. Well, I'm hoping to see, Marvin Harrison make some statements, some big games, some big plays. I would like to see our offense try to put it together against these crappy teams before we go fight the smelly rodents. So, but that's all I really have to say about Michigan State. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State, once again, I pretty much said it. They just not a good football team this year. They're in a tailspin, and I think Ohio State definitely needs to take advantage of a team that, you just came off a nice little upset win over a 5-3 Nebraska team, but you're coming into the Horseshoe. You guys are about to get a wake-up call, and it would be awesome to see Kyle McCord throw for about 275 and 3 touchdowns. Let's get Travion around 150 and a couple of touchdowns on the ground. Maybe throw to him another 3 or 4 times with 30-40 receiving yards. See if we can get him a third straight 200 total yard game. If we can see the Travion against the Spartans that we've seen the last 2 weeks, and get Marvin a nice 100-yard game, and this defense can look dominant and really hold Michigan State in check, then that will be a good building block to, step onto for Minnesota at home, and then obviously, hopefully from Minnesota when we go up and visit the smelly rodents in 2 weekends. So definitely this is a game where I think Ohio State could kind of get back to good as far as Kyle McCord bolstering his confidence. This is a game to do it. This really is. This is a game for him that I legitimately, my expectations of him are to throw for about 250 to 275 and 3 touchdowns. That's my expectations for him in this game.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I mean, I just want to see him go out there, perform, have some good confidence to go in. I mean, we got to start playing. We got to get ready to play our best football because we got Michigan. We win there, Big Ten championship, and then the playoff. So, Andy, that is all. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you guys can catch us live next time. We are going to do this live for here on out so we can get you the show every time. Do us a favor. Don't be a hoe. Share the show. I'm Drew Sample. Follow me on Twitter at Drew Sample. And Andy.
At Andy's Wired, baby.
Thanks again for tuning in, guys. And we look forward to bringing you another episode next week.